Hey, so welcome back. We are going to be finishing up Spyro 1 today. To start with, Gnasty's world is very small. And I mean very small. This is the entirety of the world right here. That being said, this is the only level in this game that you cannot 100% on your first way through, because there are actually gems in each of these dragon mouths, but you have to finish the previous level to get the next mouth to open. So you have to finish all the levels to get all the gems. You look familiar.
Hey, didn't I already free you?
You're in Gnasty's world now, Spyro, and you are the dragon that must defeat him.
Bring him on! I'm ready!
Reach the exit in each of Gnasty's lands. Then you can challenge the Nork himself.
Actually, if I recall right, there is no new dragons here. Every dragon you rescue is one you've rescued somewhere else. So there's only like 74 dragons in the entire dragon realm. I could be wrong about that, but I'm almost certain that I'm not. Actually, yeah. This is one of the few games where the adults, or not even so much the adults, but just everybody else actually tries to do something. The reason you're rescuing repeat dragons is they all came here to try to fight Gnasty Nork themselves and got resealed in crystal. Which I've always found kind of neat. Like, holy crap, the dragons are actually trying to do something. Also, yeah, as you can see, you can charge the metal barrels to send them flying. Do not charge into the TNT barrels. That will only make you hurt. The neat thing is these guys are armored and will turn to face you. But if you ignite the TNT barrel, you'll blow up their armor. You also can just charge metal barrels at them if they're in a position where there are metal barrels to charge. Metal barrels pretty much act like rockets in that they'll destroy anything that they hit. That's a deceptively tough glide because the barrel is blocking the majority of the platform. I love doing that, just gliding around behind him and he has no idea you're even there.
Keep up the good work, Spyro. I expect Gnasty's really starting to worry about you.
I'd be shaking in my Nork boots if I were him.
Yeah, all the dragons here are dragons you've rescued before. I had to see the one in the level to figure out if that was fully the story, and yep. So, like I said, that implies that there's only like 74 dragons in the entire dragon realm. Which is a little unnerving. Unless they just happen to have a small clutch this generation. Again, trying to fully figure out all of the connections with what Year of the Dragon brought in is a little headache-inducing. Because considering Spyro is the only child dragon we know of here in 1, and there's only a handful of eggs, it paints a really dark picture. We actually have to charge that to hit this. Which is a nifty little trick shot, I think. Since these are TNT barrels, you have to be a little bit smarter and just Donkey Kong over them. As I said before, charging them is only going to introduce you to a world of pain. So I did mention this in a couple of other home worlds, but this last area was supposed to be the Machinist Dragon area, and I'm actually wondering if this is legitimately how it was supposed to look. Because the notes we have do say that the Machinist Dragon's homeworld was supposed to be very industrialized. So I'm wondering if this is actually Machinist style design and it just got straight imported for the Norks. Because it's really hard to tell because we don't know exactly when the Machinist Dragons were cut from the game.
Wow, I never thought I'd be rescued, especially by such a little dragon. What I mean is, I always believed in you, Spyro.
You gotta believe.
I'm almost certain we've seen Thomas before. But he acts like he only just now met us. But yeah, we don't know when exactly the Machinist Dragons got cut in production. We do know that they were cut early enough that there's no real concept art for them, but there's actually not any real concept art for any of the dragons that we can easily find. This is a precarious spot. This key one, so we can't bust it open. I mean, there might be concept art for, like, all of the Spyro dragons, but I've tried to look and I've legitimately never found any. Might just be that I haven't been able to find anything on the art book, but as far as I can tell when I was looking up, we have absolutely no concept for the Machinist Dragons, so there was not really any idea how early in development they were cut. I do feel like that a majority of the design was just straight kept from the Machinist Dragons, though. If I had to guess, I would probably assume that the Machinist Dragons would have all this Oop, I'm dead. Would have all this industrial stuff, but maybe look a little more melded with nature or natural aspects. Also, that death was kind of funny because Spyro fell and then just stopped on the floor, but still died. Like, you could see him physically land on the ground there. And that, if it was long enough to be in the demo, it was cut pretty late in development. If it was still called the Machinist World in the demo, then yeah, that highly suggests that the vast majority of the design we saw in the original game, and by extension this game because it straight copies it, is actually meant to be Machinist Dragon design. So probably they just made it a little less natural, would be my guess. I don't know how that hit me there. Or maybe they always intended the Machinist Dragons to have this level of industrialization, and it's just the fact that the Norks are here that makes it feel more intimidating and harmful rather than the actual design. It is unfortunately something we will never really know. Also, while I understand why Toys for Bob didn't include it, I really wish they had found some way to include the machinist dragons. Even if you couldn't make like a completely other world, maybe stick in a couple extra dragons here and there that are clearly the machinist dragons. But then again, that wouldn't be entirely faithful, so I see why they didn't do it. Because making a change like that in a remake is very hit or miss. People might love it or people might hate it, and it's impossible to tell, so it's honest. It really is just safer overall to stick with what was already there. Especially because, as I said before, the original trilogy was, even now, it still holds up. So keeping almost everything exactly the same and just painting it over and adjusting a few mechanics here and there is a pretty wise decision. And who knows, this did, as far as I'm aware, the Reignited trilogy did really, really well. So maybe we'll get another original trilogy styled sequel. And they can put in the machinist dragons there. Ooh, does it? They'll have to give me that. I'll edit that in post. It does sound like then that they just straight imported the machinist. They just basically removed all the dragons, put in the Norks, and called it done. Oh, that was very close. Which does make sense if they were very pressed for time. Also, these look like bubblegum cannons. I know it's meant to be some kind of toxic slime they're shooting, but it looks like bubblegum cannons. Or paintball guns, yeah.
Thank you for rescuing me.
Okay, he might be new. I don't remember seeing him before. Also, don't be fooled. Those do not have a minimum distance. If you're right in his face, he will still hit you with that shot. It looks like it should go over your head if you're that close, but no. Ooh. So this is interesting looking, isn't it? Where do we rescue him? Because I definitely do not remember that dude. You I remember.
Be on the lookout for Nork commandos, Spyro.
They better be on the lookout for me.
Oh, was he the one in, the boss fight there? Yeah, I legit do not remember Cosmos. Sorry, Cosmos. Also, yeah, we got some more supercharged shenanigans. First one is fairly simple. That was weird. The first one is fairly simple. Not easy, but fairly simple, especially if you know that you can jump from here and make it because of the gains you get from the supercharge. This is where the ramp comes in, though. Because now we gotta launch ourselves up. And you do have to make the jump, I think, to get over there. Actually, I think you can glide there. Check. No, okay. Probably just a fragment of a chest that I saw or something. There. The life dude over here. I don't know what these little life things are supposed to be. Yeah, you can make it here with just the glide. Pretty sure that, yeah, that corner doesn't have anything in it. Like, let's move on. Yeah, I legit don't remember. This is a deceptively dangerous room. Because all three of these guys have, sights trained on each other. This Rambo-looking dude always amuses me. Not do that quite right. I'm gonna back up a bit and get some fodder. Much like the boss stages, these are made harder from the fact that there's not a lot of fodder around anywhere. And even when there is fodder, they don't respawn very fast. Because there was a rat here, and now there's not. Oh. Okay, either I hit the rat immediately as it spawned, or it was invisible. I'm not really certain what just happened there. But it was something. Something happened there. That's another deceptively tricky one, but if you do the advice I said before by not hesitating and pulling back, and curve when you do the flame, you will actually hit them both. And that's Twilight Harbor done. Which opens up the next mouth. Which is exactly what you think it is. So notice that right there. Notice the fact that we got all the treasure, but it didn't say level complete. There's a reason for that, which we'll get into in just a bit. This game is a little unique in that it's completely impossible to 100% it before you finish the game. But that's not really much of a problem for... well, like I said, you'll see. So, Gnasty North boss fight. This is complete and utter garbage. I hate this fight with a passion. This fight is basically 3 chained chases. You have to chase 2 thieves, and then you have to chase Gnasty himself. I'm sorry, 4 chained chases. And it's a pain in the butt, because I think the chases are the weakest part of this game. The strongest part of the game is the platforming and everything, but the chases are the weakest part, and they made a boss fight based off 4 of them. Maybe even 5, depending on what I do and do not remember. Point being, I do not like this fight. I do not think that this is a good or fun fight. Also, point being is I'm going to have to concentrate a lot to be able to do this, especially because there are no checkpoints in this fight. If you die, you go right back immediately to the very start and do all of the chases all over again. There's a reason I left Gnasty's world for its own entire stream. Rather than, trying to do it last stream, because this is going to be very frustrating. Also, no, even though the keys all look the same, you can't skip steps. You can't unlock that with the key. You have to go through all the chases. Like, I might have given some of the other bosses crap, but at least they played to the game's strength. Yeah, generally your best bet with the thieves is just to hit them in the first couple of seconds in that corner. But here's this part. And no, don't try to flame Gnasty when you first go in. You will fail miserably. I tried for 10 minutes to see if I could hit him early, and it just don't work. The best suggestion I have is to just walk the circuit a bit and get used to how this part is laid out. Also picking up all the gems to make sure you are not distracted, because this chase is very, very tight. Gnasty Nork is very fast. Which is kind of hilariously weird because he just does the walk animation. Doesn't even really look like he's running. So you have to cut corners here. You cannot catch him if you are not cutting corners. I actually feel like they made this fight harder here in the remake somehow. Though I couldn't really tell you why it feels that way. It just really does. Ow. The good news is your hit points don't really matter. This boss fight is just a fight of a lot of instant death, so the only time your hit points matter are here in this first section. Because once you get out of this first section, any mistake you make, it'll just be instant death. Oh, so yeah, see, you physically can't catch him. You do need to be careful about specifically where you cut corners, though. Some corners like that are easier to cut than others. I just barely missed it. Because he does actually stop on that platform for a brief second. Which gives you just an opening to flame him. Like that. And here's the actual hard part. You are now on a time limit. Because these things start retracting the moment you start chasing Gnasty Nork in here. And you have to get through them all before they all retract. And that is way harder than it looks. Ugh. But that did it!
You're toast, Nork.
I don't know how I did that on the first try. That's never happened before.
took so long. Almost forgot about you guys.
What about Gnasty Gnork?
Gnasty Nork is toast.
So now there's order again in the Dragon Kingdom?
Well, mostly. I've still got some treasure to find.
What will you do next?
I'd say the sky's the limit.
That went way better than it really had any right to. I think that that reverse curse I was talking about hit again. Because when I first did that, that took me like 40 minutes to finish that boss fight. Also, I'm letting the credits run both because these people deserve credits and because the art in the credits is just amazing and I love it. And yeah, the end of the first game there implies Spyro learned how to fly, but that doesn't actually apply in any of the later games, which is disappointing, but I forgive it because we got 2 really awesome games. Spyro! Whoops! I still hold to the belief that whoever was paid to design all of the individual dragons was not paid enough. The individual designs were so absolutely gorgeous, they needed to be paid more. Spyro! You know, Spyro seems like he'd be a heavy metal fan. I could believe that. Honestly, I'm just gonna say it. Whatever they got paid for making this trilogy and this compilation in general, they did not get paid enough. It really does feel like it was made by people who grew up with and loved these games their entire childhood. It's so good. Also, I really love how into all of these crafts Spyro is. I love the extra personality that the compilation gave him, that he's really just the chillest dude, willing to go along with most anything if it looks like it might be fun. Also, I just realized that's a mop and a bucket he's standing on. I thought that was like an axe. That's a mop. Aw, Spyro broke the little clay thing he made. He looks so sad about it too. Also, I think part of I noticed that all of these are artisan dragons. Because of the crafts he's working with. So I think they're all trying to help Spyro figure out what craft he excels in, which is adorable of a thought. Also, this is Spyro what he carved, I think. I do feel like Spyro is an artisan dragon. Just one that happens to be very courageous and strong. Also, I just realized he chipped the arm off that poor fairy. That being said, naming the fairy Zoe is interesting. Spyro, no! At least he's really into painting? I don't think that dude's gonna be very happy when he wakes up. But yeah, the reason I said it's interesting is that if I recall right, Zoe is the name of fairy from 2, but she's not a fairy from the Dragon Realms. So why would the dragon... I think it's just supposed to be kind of a reference nod more than anything else. Oh, Spyro. Yeah, that's what I thought these were. That's so adorable. I don't get this one. Why is Spyro looking so awkward? Oh! Look at the back of the dude's head. Spyro made a paper airplane and accidentally nailed him in the back of the head with it. That took me a minute to notice. Also, here's Yugo's mentor, I bet. Mr. Clockwork Dragon over here. I just realized he also has prosthetic horns. Look at that. That doesn't look like it's just covering his horns. Spyro! He's got a cell phone! Is that a unicorn? I think he's got a unicorn slushie there. Also, Sparks chilling out on that little tiny pillow is the most adorable thing. Oh my lord. Spyro, no! You're not in a bachelorette party, that's not what you do with cake! Also though, it might be kind of a weird thought, but I think Spyro's artistic voice is in helping other people, because I think there's a certain artistry in essentially giving a hand to others and making everything much better as a whole by doing so. You could technically see that as more the Peacekeepers sort of realm, but that's generally what I think about that. Though really, from seeing all of the various things Spyro's doing, he's pretty good at a lot of things. That was a good painting of the flame sheep. That was a really good little clay tablet before it broke, and he was really, really good at sculpting as well. So it could also be that he's not... that his artistic voice is just a jack of all trades. He's good at basically everything. He won't be as fantastic as the other dragons who specialize, but he can do pretty much anything. It was proportional, which is better than I could do. But you have to at least give him the sculpture. The sculpture was really good. Yeah, I do think Spyro's talent is just in... I guess you could say painting a better world or something like that. His ability full on is just making things better for everybody by giving them a hand. I said there's not more sketches, but I'm pretty sure they actually went through all of the artisan dragons there. Or at least all the ones that had specific types of, that had different types of talents. I will say that playing through this does feel like it's very faithful to the original version, which I said about the whole trilogy. The whole trilogy is the whole compilation is very faithful to the original trilogy, but it really does feel like re-experiencing the whole games from your childhood. It really does. There's not much I think I can say besides just praising it like that, because we're still only a third of the way through the compilation. But yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. It was very good. I do feel like this is a bit smoother than the original Spyro the Dragon. That's probably because it's on a much more advanced system. They kept the mechanics identical. It just feels like they smoothed out some of the movements, so it feels like Spyro is a bit faster and responds a little bit better. Which is not to say that he doesn't respond well in the original trilogy, because he does. Once you actually know how the mechanics work in the original trilogy, he's very responsive. You can pretty much get him to do what you want, when you want, for the majority of the time. But because the joysticks in this day and age are much more responsive, Spyro in turn is a bit more responsive by doing that. I do like the fact that they added the auto flutter. If you just barely clip the edge of something and you would have normally fallen off, that he'll like a little auto flutter and get up there. And really the actual graphics were just gorgeous. I say before that graphics don't make the game, and that's true. But when I say that, I mean, like, just because you have the top of the line graphics does not mean that your game is good, and it does not mean that your game is pretty. Or even, not even just pretty, even just engaging to look at. Because, like, you can have, if you look at any of the very modern shooters, they have really good graphics, but they're not engaging to look at. They're just very bland and boring. And I think that this is, I think that this is basically the poster of how to do, of what I mean. Because, like, this game is beautiful. It's a beautiful game. And it doesn't make the older games look bad. The older games are still fairly pretty games in their own right. But this game is beautiful because it rolled with the stylization that the original game had. It basically looked at the original game's stylization, kind of figured out how to work with it, and then just brought it into the modern age. And I think that's why it just looks like such a beautiful work of art, because they knew what the original games were aiming for with the stylization, and they just smoothed out the edges, dressed it up a bit more, and painted over it with all the care and love in the world. And it shows. It really, really shows. And this is the type of thing I mean when I mention graphics being good. You do not have to have top-of-the-line graphics to be good. And in fact, I would say that just going the most realistic, the most top-of-the-line you can go is a one-way ticket to being boring and forgettable. And Nintendo themselves has another example of this in The Wind Waker. Now, people made fun of The Wind Waker at the time for the cel-shaded graphics, which is, I believe, what brought about Twilight Princess looking very kind of hyper-realistic. It did still have its own sort of stylization, but they definitely went for way more realism with the Twilight Princess. And anybody who's played both games, I ask you, what do you remember more of? Do you remember more of The Wind Waker, or do you remember more of Twilight Princess? Because for me, I remember more of The Wind Waker. The stylized graphics looked way more memorable to me than just everything in Twilight Princess, because everything in Twilight Princess just blends together in one kind of tight, mushy mess, and I could not name a single place in Twilight Princess, because I just don't remember it. But I could name 3 or 4 islands in The Wind Waker. I could picture them very clearly, even if I don't remember the actual names. And that's really, and it's not about that. I bring this up because there's been a lot of arguments lately about what constitute good graphics. Like, even just for a very recent game, Pokemon Sword got a lot of hatred because people thought the graphics were because people legitimately were upset that Pokemon used stylized graphics. I have no idea how else to put it. People were literally saying that these graphics didn't have effort put in them. People would literally say that the Game Boy the 3DS graphics were better, and it's like, that's not the case. And I heard people comparing Pokemon Sword to Breath of the Wild and how Breath of the Wild's trees looked better, and it's like, they didn't look better, they looked more real. And as a whole, I found Breath of the Wild very forgettable. The actual story was interesting, the open world was interesting, the places that were stylized were very beautiful, but 90% of the map was just bland and forgettable because it just looked like everything else. So, yeah, that's why I think that the graphics of this game worked so well, is that they didn't just decide, okay, let's make this as real and high-tech and awesome and as we can. They thought, okay, we have all this graphical power that we can do visuals with, but how do we do the visuals to make them feel impactful? How do we do the visuals to make it feel like this is the original Spyro trilogy? And because they went from that mindset, they were able to make a game that looks fantastic, that will probably look fantastic in 50 years, 60 years, when graphics still keep evolving. This game will probably still stand out even against the new releases then. Just because it's made so well and lovingly. No sheep were harmed during the creation of this game. A few Norks, but no sheep. And I believe this is the Toys for Bob cast. All with the original Spyro logo on their shirt. And puppies. Cute little puppies. Yeah, like I said, we're not quite done yet. I believe that cutscene we did see first about finding more treasure, I don't remember if that's originally in the game, in the first game or not. It's been a while since I got this far, but I know at least part of what's going to happen in the cutscene we're about to get after all this is new. Also, this is why you can't finish the game on the first run, because this dragon will only spawn after you have beaten Gnasty Nork. And you can't make him spawn any earlier.
Gnasty's ancient history now. So, what's in there?
I believe this is Gnasty's treasure hoard, but the gate will only open if you have found everything in the Dragon Kingdom. Come back when you have reached 100%.
We've seen him before. But yeah, so he overwrites the original dragon we found here, and like I said, he will only spawn after you beat Gnasty Nork. So if you don't have 100%, you will have to go back and get everything, but if you get everything up to this point when you pick him up, you will just immediately be given 100% in the game. which you can see right there. That opens up Gnasty's loot, which is basically the bonus level of this game. It's... I don't really like Gnasty's loot because it is an entire bonus level around chasing thieves. And as we've established, that is the weakest part of the game. The one good thing about it is that Spyro can fly freely, but you can't fly too high. You have to unlock the next tier of area to fly to by catching one of the thieves. As you see, even if I try to fly, it will force Spyro down, because there is a invisible flight ceiling that only raises when you catch a thief and unlock a door. I like the idea of this. I don't like the fact that it's thieves. You ask me what they should have done is they should have hidden the keys around the area and then had you have to fly around the area to find the key. But nope, just more thief chasing. That said, there is a lot of gems here. Do you remember the very opening where the dragon said, he mentioned that there was, 12,000, he goes, or 14,000 for the gems? Yeah, we're gonna be getting 14,000 before we exit this area. So by unlocking that, we have now unlocked a higher tier. We can go up. And this is it! Hooray. This guy's harder because there's no visible track, so you're not really sure where you can hit before he'll convert and turn the other way. You have to be very careful when you run around on the inside. Could have hit. That did hit. I will say I really, really love the idea of just a level that gives you freeform flight. And I am incredibly disappointed that none of the other games ever did this again. Spyro 2 and Spyro 3 do not give you freeform flight in the bonus levels, and it's just a major disappointment. This is also supposed to indicate that I believe what we learned at the end is that Spyro learned how to fly. Also, the flying thieves are much less annoying to deal with because they're slower and they stick to one track from what I'm aware of. I don't think they can spin, change which direction they're going. Okay, no, I think I'm actually wrong. I think they can. Basically, they're slower and they're easier to predict. Also, it's just more fun chasing thieves when you can just fly. Also, I believe none of the areas around here are an insta-kill because Spyro can just jump in and take off. I could be wrong there, but I'm fairly certain they're not. I just don't feel very inclined to test it. Once you get past the two ground thieves is when the stage starts really getting fun. Because at that point you can chase the sky thieves, which are fun to chase. And you can just freely fly over the majority of the level, which is absolutely fun. Stuff like this is a really, really good reward for 100%. Also, I did mention before about the fact that I didn't like the fact that Enter the Dragonfly forced you to 100% the game to be able to get the entire game. I will say that Year of the Dragon sort of does that. Though I think Year of the Dragon is a bit more... It's a bit less clear-cut on on what you would consider the rest of the game, because the Year of the Dragon does have a very huge... It has a whole level set, a ton of gems, and some extra... and an extra egg, Final Dragon Egg, if you get 100% and go into the bonus world, which some people might consider being the rest of the game, and I could see that. That's a fair feeling. But at the same time, you don't get any other ending for finishing the bonus world. You just get the extra stuff and a bit of extra interaction and dialogue with your friends and some more things you can actually play around and do. So if you only really care about the ending and the story, then yeah, Year of the Dragon does not require it. But if you care about having access to all of the levels and everything, then yeah, Year of the Dragon would kind of require it. But I will counter this saying at least Year of the Dragon is a good game. Enter the Dragonfly was not. But I can understand why people would have issues with Year of the Dragon if they feel like the entire bonus world and the final Dragon Egg is locked behind 100%. I just don't think it's... I personally don't find too much issue with it because I always think of all that as like a bonus rather than actually having to do it, but I can understand why some people are upset by it. Yeah, I do really feel like 2 and 3 absolutely needed to do something like this. They needed to give you a free flight level. There's not really any excuse for not.
Spyro the Dragon, you defeated Gnasty, collected the dragon eggs, saved all the dragons, and recovered every bit of treasure in the Dragon Kingdom. How do you feel?
I feel fired up, Bob. And I'm happy for the Dragon World, of course. I certainly wouldn't want to spend the rest of my Dragon days butting heads with Gnasty Nork and his weird minions.
What's a minion?
Never mind. You know what they say. For every good battle, you need a good adversary. And I felt that Gnasty, in spite of his misguided nature, was a worthy opponent. Uh-oh. Here we go again.
I love the background events so much. I really do. Yeah, despite Spyro saying that we don't actually go again, I think it does imply that he is constantly fighting with Gnasty Nork between the games, but we don't know for sure. That is the entirety of the original game, though. There is nothing more that we can do in Spyro 1. As you can see, it puts you back here in the Artisan's World. If we check, there's our 120%. 14,000 treasure, 2,000 which we stole from Gnasty Nork. Probably around 74 dragons, 6 of which we saved twice. 12 eggs. Now I'll actually go ahead and go through the skill points to just show them off. You can see in the Artisan's World, you have to reach the tricky platform, which is what we got when we first got up there. Stone Hill is you burn the hidden pink tulip. Town Square, all bulls stuck, just means that you charge into every bull and get them stuck in the ground. Dr. Shimp, beat it without dying or getting hit. High Caves, burn the hidden painting. Blow hard, ride a druid platform for 10 seconds, which is a little bit glitchy. I had to actually jump off and on a couple times and ride it for 10 seconds each time before it actually registered that I did that. Then you have Terrace Village, no electric floor damage, which we got. Which I believe is the one that is a skill point that we got earlier that I was very confused about. Metalhead, perfect. Dreamweaver's Secret Room, Haunted Towers, burn the Blue Wizard Hat. Lofty Castle, destroy the Hidden Stump. Duck West, perfect. Gnasty Nork, perfect. And if you get the skill points, you unlock the art gallery. The first page unlocks part 1. The second page unlocks part 2. And as I said before, I will not be doing these skill points because while these ones aren't too bad, the ones for the later 2 games get absolutely brutal and quite frankly just not fun to play. Specifically the skill points that made me decide that I wasn't going to do a skill point run as well were the skill points in 2 and 3, which required you to complete the speedways in a very tight amount of time. Even on my personal file, trying over and over, I still have not got those skill points. So I just decided I wasn't going to do it. If I do manage to get the skill points at some point, I will just go on my actual file and record the gallery. If I don't manage to get the skill points, I'll just record what of the gallery I have unlocked instead. But that will be a Patreon-specific video when I do that. So if you want to see it will. So whatever I do with the gallery, it's only going to be on Patreon. Which, I mean, it's just an extra bonus little gallery. That seemed a pretty neat little thing to get for Patreons. But yeah, that's the end of. Like I said, that's the end of Spyro 1. We have nothing else we need to do, which means that next time we'll be moving on to Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, which is also called Gateway to Glimmer in, I believe, the UK. But I will see you for that next time.